I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. And I will now introduce the board members that we are here. We have Meg Ludlam, we have Mike Rowley, Tasha Woods, I'm Jason White. We also have Jonathan Henderson, who could not be with us in person, but is here virtually. Also, we have Ginger, our superintendent, and we also have our student representative here as well. Thank you. To get us started, just a quick reminder for those of you in person, we are at the school, so that means there is a mask mandate. Ginger will have more of an update on that in her report. So I just need to remind everyone to please make sure you're wearing your mask. We want to keep this meeting going and I don't want to have to clear the room because people are not in compliance. So thank you for that. Let's start with the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Well, I'm not on the right meeting, but doesn't matter.
All right, thank you, Meg. Meg has moved that we approve the consent agenda and Tasha has seconded. Board, any discussion? Seeing that there is none, I do want to comment. We had a couple retirement announcements and a resignation. We really want to honor the teachers and the years of experience they have given to our children and to this district. So thank you for your service. We wish you the best as you will be leaving the district. So, all right, board, I'm going to go ahead and call the vote. All those in favor with an aye?
Aye.
All those opposed? And do you have, sorry, Leslie, I do need to confirm, is Jonathan unmuted? Because if he's not, if he can at least, yeah, it would be good to have his vote.
Yeah, I was muted and I couldn't unmute myself.
Okay, perfect. So Jonathan, can
Aye,
you?
affirmative, so.
Thank you. I just want to confirm that. Okay, so it looks like, yes. So consent agenda is approved. Thank you. And I also voted aye if I didn't say that. Okay. All right, next up we will move to administration. Ginger, the superintendent's update.
All right, well, first I'll start with the overall with the COVID-19 updates. As you know, on February 17th, Governor Inslee announced that on March 21st, 2022, the mandate requiring all staff and students to wear masks while inside our schools would be lifted. A letter was sent home to all families by Blackboard. I sent home outlining this mandate and explaining the requirement by law for all staff and students to continue to wear their masks while inside our schools until March 21st. And right now, all the same processes and procedures remain the same until further notice by the Department of Health or Kittitas County Public Health. And really just a huge, huge thank you to our parents, students, and staff for their incredible support and patience during this time of change. And we are still, we did receive a request from a community member saying, is it going to be a board member decision, a board decision, or a superintendent decision around the mask? And I think my response to that is that we are still working together with Kittitas Public Health and Department of Health. And we are still waiting for further guidelines from them. And I think as we get closer to that date, I'll be coming to you with updates that we're getting from Kittitas Public Health, and we'll have very open conversations about that decision. huge celebration. Thank you to our Ellensburg community for supporting our EP&L levy and our technology levy. It is just so amazing. So much thank you to our community members for their support of their schools. Thanks to our voters, we'll be able to continue to support our amazing enrichment activities, athletics, music. As you know, Legally Blonde is the musical that's opening up this weekend. I'll run this coming weekend and the following weekend. And certainly other positions and programming that are funded with our levy dollars. So again, a huge, huge thank you to our wonderful Ellensburg community. So the levy, we don't start receiving levy funds until January of 2023. So next year is a gap year. And I just have to remind the board that we are still being affected by the decisions that were made post-McCleary. As you will remember, back in February of 2019, we were looking at a pretty significant reduction in our funds that we thought would be for this year. And some of the factors that hit our budget as a result of the McCleary decision was the loss of the staff mix factor. The state no longer pays for more for teachers with more experience. Instead, we get a flat rate now per teacher of about $67,000, and the average salary for an ESD teacher is about $74,000. There was a reduction of monies that were collected from levies for a couple of years. Instead of getting about $7 million from our levy, we were only getting about $4.3 million. And then certainly right around that same time, it was a separate decision, but the state went to a statewide health insurance SEB, and that is costing us more for health insurance than the previous system that we were on. Now, other factors that affected the budget between 2018 and 2019 and 2019 and 2020 through various negotiation processes, we did salaries significantly increased across most personnel. And that was really to hire and retain qualified staff. And then in February of 2020, at that point, we were predicting significant reductions for this year. And we were talking to staff, we were talking to our principals about it. And then March 13th, all of us will always remember, is when the state said, was when the pandemic hit and the state closed down all of our schools across the state. And we stayed here in Ellensburg, we stayed in virtual literally from March 13th, 2020 through about October 25th, I think is the exact day that we went into hybrid. And really kudos to our amazing staff members, our administrators, our district personnel. We really worked well together as a team in conjunction with Kittitas Public Health. And we were able to remain strong. We did not close any of our schools the entire time. And we stayed in hybrid from late October through about the late April, early May. And then we were able to switch to all in person. And that was because they switched the 6-foot distancing rule to 3 foot. And so the district did save money through the time when we were virtual and hybrid. We didn't spend as much as we would when we were all in person. Some other factors that affected our budget is by the end of May 2020, ESD was down approximately 200 students in enrollment, and we receive about $8,800 per student to go towards our FTE. ESD started the year in September of 2021 with about 3,100 students. So we started still down by about 100 students, and it kind of varies still between being 100 to maybe 80 students down around in that range. So we will be looking at reducing the budget for next year, and district leadership, we've been working alongside principals and directors to decide how to best accomplish this task. And we can come to you with more information about this at another future board meeting. And again, without the support of our voters with the levies, the reductions we'd be looking at this year would be well over $3 million. So we are so thankful for our community and their support. And we are very thankful that we live in a community that cares about their schools. And now I would like, Leslie, if you could bring up Julie Hamilton's presentation. I will stop sharing my screen. And we have a lot to celebrate also with our early learning. And Julie was here last time when we had some technology issues, but she is our early learning coordinator and has done an amazing job setting up and supporting our great teachers who we have for preschool. And we just started our Transitional K program, and we're using the portables that are out just south of Mount Stewart. And we actually used, we included that with some of the construction and bond projects. And we were able to go in and put in brand new windows with some of the same values that we've had with these buildings, which is bringing the outdoors in and increasing the amount of natural lighting and play space. The students will have their own play space. I had a chance to take a look at that. And they brought in some new playground equipment. So I really think the future of Ellensburg School District will be to just really invest in and build a solid early learning center, because we know if we can work together with our community in a very play-based environment for students to learn in, we can just really start to build that solid foundation for students that they can carry through their entire K-12 journey. So Julie.
Okay, thank you, Ginger, and thank you, board, for having me here. My name is Julie Hamilton, and I am the Director of Early Learning and Elementary Success in the Ellensburg School District. And I am excited to share with you this evening and super grateful for this opportunity to support our amazing early childhood educators, both in our district and within our community. I'm going to share with you a little bit about two of our early learning programs. The first one, oops, I kind of lost controls of my screen. Hang on one sec. There we go. The first one that I wanted to talk about was at our Early Learning Center. As many of you know, we've had a developmental preschool for years, and it was originally housed on Central's campus. We were very excited, as Ginger mentioned, to be able to bring this program onto our own campus, into our beautiful newly remodeled Early Learning Center annex. And really, the goal of this was to transition our developmental preschool into a more inclusionary experience for all students. Our Early Learning Center preschool is open to all 3- and 4-year-olds. This includes students that have an active IEP, students that have a concern and maybe need an evaluation. We also have 11 ECAP slots, which are state-funded slots. And then we do have community space available for some of our typically developing students. We have 2 classrooms, 4 sections total. So we have an AM and a PM section, and we are just excited to be able to offer some more early learning services to our community. Our next slide here is a picture of our phenomenal preschool team. These are our lead teachers, Effany Martinson and Kathy Eidler. They both are certificated teachers and specialized in, have a special endorsement in special education. Our paraprofessionals, we are blessed to have amazing paraprofessionals on our team: Mac Woods, Leticia Acevedo, Ashley Ackerman, Cassandra Longo. We also are supported with speech language pathologists, our amazing Dawn Grenning, and occupational therapist and occupational therapy assistant, Kristen Flonewood and Tracy Stroms, our preschool psych, Tiffany Monoa, and our family liaison, Deanna Wilson. As you can tell, it's quite a team, and they really do offer some phenomenal services for our students. This crew is experts in the field of differentiating instruction. We offer a part-day program to students, so it's 3 hours per section, whether that's AM or PM. They specialized in hands-on play-embedded learning, and they truly are differentiating to meet the needs of our wide range of learners every single day in their classroom. It's really a bright spot in our district, and it's a lot of fun to walk people through to see and to share in the awe of all of the learning that's happening at any given moment. Some of the benefit of what we're able to offer is those wraparound supports from speech language services to occupational therapy to really just being able to support kiddos that attend for part of the day and maybe go back to a community preschool, just really being able to support students with their unique needs. One of the pictures here you'll see on this slide, and you saw in the previous slides, is of one of their embedded learning days. They were having a PJ and pancake day. They had the opportunity to follow a recipe and make pancakes together. So working together, following directions. And then they also had an obstacle pancake course where they had to balance a pancake on a turner and go across some different obstacles and through tunnels. It was pretty fun to see. As you can tell by their sweet little faces, there's just so much joy while building solid foundational skills in literacy and in math. The next program I wanted to talk about is a new program to the Ellensburg School District. And you probably have heard about Transitional Kindergarten. Transitional Kindergarten is something we're really proud to be able to offer to our community. TK is a kindergarten program for children who are below the age of 5, so 4 or 5-year-olds, and also for children who do not have access to high quality early learning experiences prior to kindergarten. So the cutoff for kindergarten is August 31st. Students have to be 5 in order to enroll. So really the age group that we are looking at are for those students that maybe turn 5 the day after. They just missed that cutoff. So we're looking for students who are 4 by August 31st and will turn 5 before the following year. And then after transitional kindergarten, students will go directly into a typical kindergarten classroom. Let's take a peek at the next one. So OSCI has outlined what they call pillars of transitional kindergarten. And those 5 pillars I have overviewed on this slide. The first one is that they must meet the full day kindergarten requirements, meaning that TK students in this part year program, which runs January to June, are treated like kindergarten students. So they have the same expectation. They have to meet WAKIDS deadlines as far as being able to assess each of our students as a baseline assessment to see where their skills are. It has some expectations around staffing and curriculum, making sure that our staff has a rich background in early childhood education and that our curriculum offers varied experiences that are appropriate for the whole child. The third pillar is part of the inclusive title of the Inclusive Transitional Kindergarten, just meaning that we are open to a wide range of students from socioeconomically diverse backgrounds, and that our curriculum is responsive to the needs of our TK students. One of the pillars is that it's fully integrated into the elementary school. So our transitional kindergarten classroom is connected to Mount Stewart and is very much treated like a kindergarten classroom. They join Mount Stewart for breakfast and for lunch, for specialist time, and they play on the playground with our K-5 kiddos. And then the last pillar there, we'll talk a little bit more about, but pillar 5, OSBI really wanted to make sure that when we're opening up our transitional kindergarten programs and districts, that we're working in collaboration with other community programs and that we are working hard to keep a coordinated recruitment effort. So our goal at ESD was really, when we decided to bring on transitional kindergarten, was looking at meeting an unmet need within our community. So part of the work in determining whether or not we were ready to offer transitional kindergarten was looking at our DCYF, Department of Children, Youth and Families heat map. That heat map shows that we are currently in Ellensburg meeting 34% of the need for preschool age children through services like ECAP and Head Start. In that coordinated effort, working with Jen Spar, who's the director of Seedlings, we realized that there were about 15 students who were sitting on their waiting list who were the right age 4 by August 31st, but were slightly over income. So meaning that we had 15 students that were sitting on a waiting list, slightly over income, meaning that until a space opened within their preschool, they wouldn't be able to access preschool. Further, Robin Reed led the childcare needs assessment work. They did a beautiful job of looking at our particular community's needs. Kittitas County, based off of the needs assessment that they found, Kittitas County is currently only meeting 23 to 31% of the potential preschool age need, so 30 months to 5 years. And Kittitas County also has experienced a 23% increase in child population over the past decade, which is 3 times the state of, or 3 times that of the rest of Washington state. So our goal is really looking at how do we meet this unmet need for students in our community. Some of the criteria, again, is that age 4 by August 31st. And the other really important factor was we were looking for children who were not already enrolled in preschool elsewhere. We really were hoping to target those kiddos that were maybe sitting on a waiting list, unable to attend, and wanted to be able to expand preschool opportunities for all children. We also had a screening day for every student that was interested in transitional kindergarten. And that's a picture there of our lead teacher, Katie, working with one of our TK students, just a kind of a meet and greet day. It was a really casual day where we could ask them about letter names and sounds and have it embedded. And then we prioritized entrance into the program based off of the most significant need from that data. So our commitment really is to work in collaboration with and not in competition with our early learning community preschool partners. We very much value each of them and continue to work alongside of them. This is a picture of our amazing TK teacher. Katie Pomeroy joins us from one of our community preschools. She was the assistant director of Happy Feet Academy. She has 10+ years working with children in this age group. She has an extensive background in ECE, and most recently during our hybrid days, she was one of our daycare providers that had opened up a school-age program at Lazy F. So she was helping support our students who were virtual learners, but also really worked at helping to design a PBL approach to the rest of their day. So we feel like we hit the jackpot in getting Katie to join our ESD team, and we have just been impressed with each one of our students and her expertise in guiding them along. So again, the structure of TK, it is a full day program. It follows the Ellensburg School District calendar, but the difference is that it runs January through June. I like to talk about how it's sort of a proactive approach or a plus more experience for some of our students who otherwise wouldn't have access to preschool. Again, it's treated just like a kindergarten class. It's just a modified year. Students, when they exit TK, will go directly into a kindergarten experience. We really are hoping that we can make it more of an intentional play-based learning opportunity for students. We've been working closely with Natalia Parker from Discovery Lab, and she's just been an awesome resource in learning alongside of us and sharing some of her approaches to PBL and early learning. And we're just excited to grow our lens both in our district and within our early learning community through our early learning leadership team. I think I mentioned this part here, but it's just a cute picture of our students on the very first day of school, how they are getting so good at their transitions, moving from their classroom over in our early learning center into the building multiple times a day. They join for breakfast, lunch, recess, and specialist, any other special activities. And it really is just a proactive approach to assuring that more students in our community have high access to high quality preschool programs. And this transition into kindergarten, we know is going to be a success, as they are already doing some of those big pieces of the day in kindergarten that can be sometimes stressful or overwhelming to our littles. So we are grateful for this opportunity and so excited to see how much success our students have had in just 16 days of school. And we're excited to see how far they will have come in June. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Julie. Board, any questions? Meg or Jonathan? No?
I wasn't clear on the distinction between the two programs, but now I am. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And then just verifying, Jonathan.
Yeah, no questions.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. All right, thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Just checking, Ginger, was there anything else for your report? Nope, that was it. All right, wonderful. All right, board, that will take us to business. Yes, business, adoption of the attendance zone and public comment. Sounds like Ginger, you will present that first. And just so everyone knows, there is 2 public comments tonight. So the first public comment will be after Ginger's presentation. And in that public comment will only be on that topic. So if there's another topic, that can be followed up at the last, at the later public comment. All right, Ginger, whenever you're ready, go for it.
Okay, so board, I went over the whole process that our design team, and this has been a long time coming, putting together the draft and actually bringing the final recommendations to you as a board. We talked about it at length at our last board meeting, and board members had a chance to ask questions and to kind of digest the information that was shared in the process. And so I am coming to you as a superintendent, representing recommendations of the board, or recommendations of the attendance zone committee, and to adopt the boundaries as they have been drawn for attendance zones for the different schools. And I want to still go back through and give you the highlights again. There's a lot of information because we've really been working hard on this project for a long time. And I'm excited that we've landed, I think, in a good place that's going to move our district forward and really strengthen our overall community. So if we think back to the fall of 2018, our bond project resolution was passed by our community, and our whole community really supported the building of this amazing Ida Mason Aronica, and really recognized that we do have a lot of growth coming our way. And another major goal of that were not only all the improvements and having up-to-date innovative learning spaces for our students, but also thinking about the future and the growth that we know is coming our way, and getting students out of the portables and into brick and mortar homes, into these beautiful innovative spaces. So after the bond project resolution was passed, then we had design teams with multiple stakeholders. We had community members, we had county city council member on there, we had parents, we had students. Meg, I think you're on one of those design teams. And we said, let's really reimagine what is that learning that we want for our students. And we even took a field trip over to the west side and said, what do we really want for these new schools and the vision for elementary education in Ellensburg? And so what you'll see at Lincoln and Mount Stewart and at Ida here is really wanting more natural lighting, shared learning spaces, and that connection to the outdoors. And certainly at Lincoln, we added a whole gymnasium, and really wanting to serve our community, because what we also heard from the community is that they wanted more available gym spaces to help support the different youth programs that we have here in Ellensburg. So we also know, and I'm going to acknowledge, we had 2 parent meetings. We had one on the 17th and one last night. And I really, really appreciate all of the parents who were on those Zooms. We had about 83 parents on the 17th, and we had close to probably 70 or so parents last night. And parents had an opportunity to put their input in the chat. And I will share with you some of the themes when I'm done with this part of the presentation. And also just want to acknowledge that change really is hard. I know I shared, I'm a parent of 2 boys, and my son had to change schools when we were in elementary school. We moved to a new town, and it was a hard change, but overall, I think my child at the time really learned the importance of resiliency and making new friends, and was able to make that transition. But I remember it was hard. It was hard on me and hard on my child at the time, but we worked through it, and I think we came out of it stronger. But we also acknowledge that with change, it's often related to the grief process, right? And so with change, sometimes people can feel, denial, bargaining, all of those until we kind of work through it to acceptance. And so just want to acknowledge that this isn't an easy change, but overall, I think it's going to be a good change for our district and for our community as well. And we did take all of the feedback that we got and all the questions that we got from those 2 parent sessions, and we put them in the form of FAQ, which I will pull up and show you some of what some of the questions were and some of our responses. We have it posted. That FAQ sheet is now on the front page of our website, and we will send that out to people as well. So let me go ahead. So again, it's a huge celebration. And what is driving all of this, the attendance zones and all that, is the fact that we are moving from 3 schools to 4, which is a good thing, but we also need to change some of what we do to make it something that we would be sustainable. And I was looking back at my superintendent updates, and way back in May of 2021, I did mention in that superintendent update, I told parents that we would have some type of boundary system for the 22-23. So we have been talking about this for a while, and tonight's the night to look at those boundaries and ask you to adopt them. So benefits, again, ESD can accommodate population growth for many years to come. We did work with a very professional company who helps to design attendance zones in all kinds of different districts across the nation, and projected growth is definitely one of the factors that we looked at. We know that students will have a modern and safe facilities for learning. We know that by going to attendance zones, transportation will be streamlined, which is beneficial to students, shorter time spent on the bus for most students. And it also helps to address the shortage of bus drivers. And we're also working together. One suggestion that came from the committee as well as from the board, a board member on the committee was asked to Right at School to see if they'd be willing to do before and after school care at all of our schools. And they are set, they're ready to set that up. And we just have to have the minimum number, which I think is 10 or 15 students to register for that. We did get feedback from our daycare providers during the first parent session, and we worked with our daycare providers right from the very beginning. If you go to our community page on our website and you go to community resources, we asked all of our local daycares to send us their flyers, and we have them posted on our website for information. And so, and then also during the hybrid piece of our learning that we had Julie Hamilton and some of our wonderful teachers went out and really helped the students that were in the daycares with the technology, and we really gave them support. And we will support them however we are able to with the resources we have through this transition as well. So why are attendance zones necessary? Again, we're going from 3 to 4 schools. And again, it's going to provide the most streamlined and cost-effective way of safely transporting students to all 4 elementary schools. The need for a transfer station will be eliminated. Right now, some students ride from the elementary school to a transfer station. They have to get off one bus and then get on another bus to get home. And we're eliminating that transfer station altogether by streamlining it and going to 4 attendance zones. And certainly we have that critical shortage of bus drivers, which is a trend throughout the region. And another benefit is also a creation of community schools where all the students that live within a certain area will be able to possibly come together because they'll be in close proximity together within the same neighborhood. And I don't know about you, but when I was a parent, my friends happened to be the parents of my children's friends. And by having that in the community, it could build a stronger community within neighborhoods as well. So again, why is a change in transportation necessary? We want to decrease travel time for students. Currently, a student may have to stop at every school before they get to the school that they attend. And again, they have to wait at a transfer station, sometimes to board an additional bus with our current system. And if we said, well, what if we wanted to maintain what we have right now? We would have to hire an additional 5 to 6 bus drivers, plus probably 8 to 10, because we'd also have to have more substitute drivers, which we know that there is a shortage right now of hiring bus drivers. And again, it helps us to streamline our transportation process for students. So I condensed this process, but want to just remind you, I'm so thankful for the people that served on the attendance committee and want to take you through the process. Again, we started talking about the need for boundaries back in May of last year. And actually, Tasha, you remember during our parent sessions when we were going to a tiered system, we had parents during the parent sessions that we had at every school that said, why haven't you guys thought about attendance zones? That, other places some of our parents have been, it's a pretty common practice to have attendance zones within school districts. And so they asked us to consider that. So again, after extensive process of research, of doing listening sessions, we adopted a 2-tiered busing system. And then last spring, again, attendance zones were suggested by parents during those listening sessions. And then we decided early this year that we were definitely going to go to attendance zones, and it was communicated in my September superintendent's update. And then the September 28th, that was my superintendent update. We announced we were going to have an attendance zone committee. And I went back and looked at my updates and noticed that also that not only was it available for people to sign up for the attendance zone committee in September, but also I put that in my October superintendent update. So really for about 2 months, people were able to sign up if they were interested. And we basically took anybody who was interested in being on the committee, and we even added a few people after the deadline that said they were interested. It was very important to us that we would have stakeholders from every school, which we did have. We had wonderful parents from each school. We had our administrators there, and really, I think, had a good process. These were our committee members. Our first committee meeting was on November 4th, and throughout the summer, we had asked Education Logistics, Edulog, to start putting together a draft of boundaries for the 4 schools. They consider many things. They certainly had a good map of where all of our students lived within our district. They looked at natural boundaries. They looked at highways and really tried to say, how could we have boundaries that have fairly equal populations of students? The other thing that was really important to us, and we asked them that from the very beginning, was to say we really want to make sure that any kind of lower cost housing would be as equally distributed as possible, equitably distributed amongst the 4 different attendance zones. We also, it was, feedback from our committee, the parents and staff members on that really drove this process too. And one of the parent members suggested that we partner with Burke, which is a consulting firm in Seattle. The city of Ellensburg uses them as well to collect demographic data. And we said, okay, let's get even more specific about the demographics of each of those attendance zones. We also said that there would be non-negotiable factors that would be true for implementing attendance zones. And these are very common with other districts that have attendance zones. And that is that students who live within an attendance zone for a certain elementary school would be given an automatic seat at that school. If a parent requests a transfer outside of their child's attendance zone and the request is approved, then the parent would need to provide their own transportation. All schools will follow a similar staffing model, meaning that we would have all the principals would use the same criteria and the same process in how they would accept inter-district and out-of-district transfers, that we'd be using that same process at every school. That every school may have a different culture, but every student in our district has access to the very same instructional materials in every school. And out-of-district transfers, this was really important, specific to our committee. Really, we thought it was fair for out-of-district transfers that are in our district this year to be grandfathered in for next year. We will try our best to put them in the same school, but we will be looking at the district transfers first, and then looking at the out-of-district transfers. Then we met on December 2nd, and we reviewed the information again that we had gotten around the boundaries, and really started looking at what are the parameters and process of that transfer process, that transfer request process. What would that look like? We also, then we met on the 16th, and we got the information from Burke and looked at all the data around income levels, growth projections, for example. And based on that feedback, they asked me to go back to Edulog and see if we could make a slight adjustment with IDA, because IDA Nason had at that time the largest percentage, and still does, of lower cost housing, and the population was a little bit larger. So we thought, well, if we can adjust the boundary zone between Valley View and IDA and do some flex there, that maybe we could equal that out a little bit more. So I went back to Burke or back to Edulog and asked them what could they do to readjust the boundary to make that a little bit more balanced. We also, on the 16th, started that design of an overall criteria for principals to use when considering a transfer request for those who wish to attend a school outside of their attendance zone. Then we met on January 13th, and Edulog was able to present the adjustments they made on the boundaries. And then later, we also asked Burke to redo the demographics. And what we found is with that adjustment, it did move more students over into the Valley View zone, and also move some of the lower cost housing over into the Valley View zone. So it was a little bit more balanced. Again, how were boundaries developed? They were developed based on main roads, natural boundaries, balancing lower income areas among the 4 schools, looking at the current student population and growth projections. And again, we hired a professional company to help us sift through that data, and they helped us to draft those boundaries that we are asking you to approve tonight. And then at this meeting, our committee reached consensus around the boundaries that were presented after we did that adjustment. Also on the 13th, the committee landed on this as the criteria that all schools would use in looking at inter-district transfers. So if we had, let's say, 4 students who wanted to transfer from other schools into Mount Stewart, and there are only 3 positions, let's say at 4th grade, and 4 students wanted in, this would be the criteria we'd look at. First, employees could opt their students into the school where they work. Siblings of students in special education programs could opt into the same schools. And the 2 programs that we have are the autism program at Mount Stewart and the life skills program at Valley View. Hardships described by the parent or the guardian, and then any other in-district students who requested a transfer. One of the themes that we saw both on the 17th and last night is many parents really wanting their children who will be in 5th grade next year to be able to finish their grade at the school where they're at now. And so that's where that would fall, probably be on a number 4, but certainly, you know, parents who feel really strongly about that, they will have this transfer request process to use to put in those requests. And again, the attendance zone committee asked if Burke could rerun the demographic data just to double check it. February 3rd, we met again and looked at the overall notes. They looked at the new demographic data from Burke and felt that it balanced out as best as we could with the lower cost housing in each of the boundary zones. And then we also developed a draft transfer request form and looked at examples from Bellevue and Vancouver to help us with that process. One of the things that was unique to what our committee said is that once a student is transferred into, is accepted as a transfer student into another building, if while they're there, that student develops some real challenging behaviors, that student would still remain at that school for the entire year. Some of the other districts said, well, if they go to a transfer and they developed, challenging behaviors, that the school would have, the transfer school could send them back to their home school. And our committee felt really strongly that nope, once that the student is accepted there, the only thing that would cause, the only factor that would cause a school that accepted a student on a transfer to have to send that student back to their home school would be attendance. And it would just be probably that the parent maybe thought they could provide that transportation, but they weren't able to. But otherwise, we were really committed about once they're there to keep our students there. So this was the timeline. So I did do that presentation with you on the 9th. We did a presentation with parents on the 17th, on the 22nd. We had a great session with our Spanish speaking students, our Spanish speaking parents. I want to say we had 10 or 15 parents there, maybe close to 20. And really a huge shout out to our translator, Monica Stabach. She was amazing. And Leslie, thank you. She manned all of the parent sessions, and we copied all of the chat comments on that and used those today. We spent most of the day working on that to put together an FAQ sheet just to make sure that parents knew they were heard, and we were able to provide responses to those. And then I also want to say that we are, I just talked with Matt Siskey, shout out to him. He's just been doing some amazing work with enrollment. And he is working like gangbusters on getting together a new website for enrollment. And he thinks, I was thinking by the end of next week, he might have it up as early as Friday with that website up where parents could actually go in and type and know exactly what attendance zone they're in. Because on the map, if you're along the edge, it's still a little hard to see. You can see major streets, but it's hard to see the smaller streets. And also that we would even have the transfer request process up and ready to go as well. So parents can get all of that information in one place. So I was excited and just really appreciate all the hard work that Matt's been doing on that. So as you know, these are the attendance zones, and you can't see it with this one. So I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute. There was several questions that came up about people that lived kind of on the outer part of the city. And I want to demonstrate where that information is. And I know it's still a little cloudy. Like I said, by Friday, we should be able to have that site up where you can literally just type in your address and know exactly what zone you're in. But let me pull this up. So this is the one, if you go on the website and it says final map, you can click on it. But where I want to go is, this over here, is I want to go down. If you look in this far corner, down in this corner right here, if I click on it, I think I can do this on Zoom. Let's see. There we go. Make it big. You can, it basically kind of shows you, and I'll go down. It shows you, it widens it. You can see the entire area. There was a question that came to us, what if we live way up on Menashash Ridge, for example, and it is even outside of what's drawn here, or we can't really tell because you can get pretty big with this and you can start to see some of the major streets. But again, that's where people would be able to type in their address and then they would know exactly what zone they are in. I showed this to you last week, but I will show it to you again. When we looked at the demographic data, again, it was important to try to balance as much as we could the lower cost housing. And so right here is where we changed the boundary. This part used to kind of stick out this way more, kind of see that? And instead, we moved that boundary in so that Ida's boundary is right along Alder Street. And by doing that, there was some multifamily housing, a little bit lower cost housing in that area right there, and really pretty populated with students. And so it shifted, I want to say it was about maybe 30 to 50 students back over into Valley Views. And it did help balance out the lower cost housing a little bit more. So I think we did our due diligence in really trying to make adjustments the best that we could with the timeline that we have. And certainly you can see Ida where there is projected growth. We know that there is some land that was bought just south, I think, of Mountain View in that area, and then up north, certainly, up north of Ida, but also over here, where Mount Stewart is, up in these areas. We know that, well, we don't know, but in talking to the city, they think maybe within the next 2 to 3 years is when we'll really start to see some of those houses go up. And, we will revisit zones. I don't think there would be drastic changes, but there might be slight changes over time if, depending on how the city develops in its growth. But in looking at the growth projections, we felt pretty confident that what we have in place here would provide that consistency that we want for our students over the long haul. Let me share one more thing here. And that is, I want to show. We worked pretty hard on this today, so I want to just give you a little glimpse. And board members, I sent this to you today. But this is our FAQ, and we took this straight from the feedback that we got from parents and community members that were on the Zoom on the 17th and the 22nd. Is there a transfer request process? We went over that. Where can we see the lines for those outside of city limits? We showed them where we could go in the lower part there. And so I'm just giving you kind of a taste for some of the questions. What about students who have a bus route to a different address than their home address? It was really important to emphasize that the home address is the address that we're using for the attendance zone. There were some questions about daycare, and the important factor to remember in all of this is the bus will only, transportation, our buses will only drive and deliver and pick up students within the attendance zone. So if I'm a family and I have my kids right now at a daycare center outside of the school zone that I'm in, then a suggestion to that parent might be to apply for a transfer. And if they can if they drive and they get that transfer to a different zone, they would have to drive their student to that daycare, but the bus would drive by the daycare just like it would be for other students within that zone and pick them up, take them to the school, and then take them back to that daycare center. So that was another common question that was there. We are going to stay with the tiered systems like we have this year with secondary first and then elementary. And that was another question that was there. But you can see some of the questions outside of the district. Again, we're going to be grandfathering in those for next year. Oh, this was a good question. If a transfer is approved once, why wouldn't it be honored indefinitely? We'd love to be able to do that. We just can't predict like the number of families or students that would move in. What I've seen though is that, and we would do our very best to, once the students transfer into a school, that we would try our very best to keep them at that school unless there were factors that were beyond our control, like maybe more families moving in. So I encourage you to kind of sift through this. What if my child is on an IEP? Again, if they're in the autism program, they automatically would go to Mount Stewart. If they're life skills program, they would automatically go to Valley View. If they're on an IEP and they're not in either one of those programs, then they would stay with the zone that they're in. So there are just some really good questions. And I encourage, parents that were there to go to this document and to contact me if they still have a question that they feel like has not been answered. I put my email address in the chat box during both of those sessions and encourage people to contact me if they still had questions. As far as the exact times, the routing times, we're still looking at that, and we'll certainly release that information when we have it. Discover class, I think that's our highly capable class. We're still looking at the programming around that, and we will put that out as soon as we have that. There was questions about traffic, and just want to use it as a time to do a shout out to Joanne Duncan and her whole staff and admin team at Lincoln. And I know, Tasha, you're a Lincoln parent. Our Lincoln parents are amazing, and the work that they did together. They have a walking school bus that their kids are excited about, and their cooperation and collaboration with their parents. It's really not a problem anymore. Joanne has done 2 videos showing us that there is no more queuing on Cora, and we sent that video to the city council too, so they're happy about that. There was a question about Helena, and when the city showed us that we could move our lot line and they accepted that, it took those responsibilities away from the district for having to complete Helena. We just continue to work together to keep the cars from queuing on Cora Street. For multiple children, transfer requests, that's where they have a box to put hardships, or there would be a place for them to say, yes, I'm okay if only one of my children get in, or no, it's either I need to either have all of my children get a transfer request or only one. There'd be a place for them to indicate that. We won't be providing transportation to daycares outside of the student's attendance zone, and I talked about that. We are looking at a way to streamline this process where there's just one place that parents can go in and fill out the information about the transfer request. It will go to a spreadsheet, and then we will be sharing that with principals. I think we'll be able to do a lot of internal work as those requests are rolling in. There was a question on, well, when would we have to close that and make some decisions around where the transfers and who would get transfers. And talking with Matt today, just a rough estimate would be probably in mid-June, because there's a lot of work that has to be done. We're going to go through a whole process in having our staff populate 4 schools instead of 3. And then after we do that, there's a lot of internal work with Skyward that we have to do to roll all that information over. If that timeline changes, then we would certainly put that information out as well. Yes, we do think for most students, except for students that live way out in the country, that the bus time is shorter. Carol did share that the transportation department several years ago did do a survey with the public, and at that time parents said they didn't like older kids riding with younger kids. They didn't like the bus exchanges or the transfers, and they didn't like the long ride times. And certainly with the tiered system and what we're looking at with attendance zones, that solves some of those issues. That was a big question over and over at both sessions, is any chance kids going into 5th grade can be grandfathered in? And I think we'll just have to look at I just encourage parents who really feel strongly about that to fill out those transfer request forms. And when we get all of them together, we'll try to look at and do what we can do based on openings and what parents are requesting. And again, the changes, none of us could have predicted the pandemic. And once you start rolling with projects, you have to follow a pretty tight timeline. And we're just excited. I think we're all very committed to supporting our students in this change. I know the principals are looking at fun ways of doing some good team building exercises and ways to bring students together. And I think the most important thing at the beginning of next year is really working together so that every student feels like they belong. And of course, the good thing about our community is that all of the students end up at Morgan Middle School. And so certainly this transition could also give them a chance to kind of broaden some of their the friends that they have and just strengthen the overall transition when they go into Morgan. And then we also included in the FAQ just a couple of articles, and just encourage you and our parents, if you find some good articles or suggestions on how to support students with changes, especially changing and going somewhere new. We will be very intentional about that next year to help support students with that change process and to help all students feel like they belong, no matter what school they go to. So that is the end of my presentation. And again, I recommend that the board adopt the boundaries as drawn.
All right. Oh, Ginger. All right. Thank you, Ginger. Board, this is an action item. And I believe before we have any discussion, I think we should open this up to public comment. So Leslie, I'm going to ask. Okay, perfect. Yes, do you have the sign up sheet? Okay, perfect. So I'm going to read this off, and thank you all for being here and who want to do public comment. Individuals wishing to be heard by the board will add their names to the list that Leslie's passing around, or they will add their names to the document in the Zoom chat box, or individuals can also be recognized in the Zoom or in Zoom by using the icon or emoji to show they are raising their hands. So I would encourage those on Zoom to make sure you do that if you have not. Once the chair calls on an individual, they will identify themselves by stating their name and address for the record. Individuals will proceed to make comments within the 3-minute time limit. In order to provide equal opportunity for comments, an individual's microphone will be turned off at the 3-minute time limit. The chair may interrupt or terminate an individual's statement when it is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. The board as a whole has the final decision in determining the appropriateness of such rulings. In accordance to the Open Public Meeting Act 4230, agendas and topics must be set in advance of the meeting. Board members will not respond to public comment during the meeting. Additionally, comments may be submitted to the board at board@esd401.org. So again, anyone wishing to do public comment for this session, this is for the attendance zone topic only. So if you are wanting to make public comment about anything else, that is for our later public comment session in a little bit. So again, if you are wanting to make public comment or speak to the board and make a public comment about the attendance zone, please sign up virtually or in person, whichever where you are. All right. And Leslie, you said we were going to start off virtual this time? Okay. Okay, and then just again, reminder, we need your first and last name as well as your address. And you have a 3-minute time limit. And it looks like Marla, you are first. As soon as Leslie states you're ready to go, you may begin.
May I begin?
Yes.
Okay. Marla Beaker, 302 North Pacific Street, Ellensburg. I understand the need for the attendance zones, and I appreciate the work that the committee has done on this. But my major concern is the 787 kids, or 62% of our elementary students, who are going to be required to change schools next year. The sense of belonging to something is really important to kids. Some kids love being a Lincoln Bullpup or a Mount Stewart Eagle, and that's a really big deal. Kids and families are passionate about the school that they are going to and the community that they've developed within that school. After the last 2 years of virtual and hybrid and all the different other kinds of learning we've done, kids just need that familiarity and the relationships that they've built over the years, even more than ever. Even my son's teacher, in her signature block, she has a quote that says, "No significant learning occurs without a significant relationship." I think that's very true. It feels like district logistics and transportation efficiencies are the things that are being prioritized in this plan and not necessarily the needs of our kids. Was minimizing the amount of students movement even a priority in this? Does this plan prioritize our kids' best interests, or does it just focus on those logistics? I understand the need to improve the busing system, but busing efficiencies could still be achieved with a broad transfer program within the zones. Students will be self-transported. There were the 3 listening sessions, and there were a lot of parent comments and concerns. And I'm wondering if those are going to be addressed and incorporated in the plan, or is the plan, or things already decided and the listening sessions were just purely informational. There was a lot of people that attended those and have a lot of concerns. As recently as January, the superintendent had in her update that a survey would go out for parents to get feedback on the plan. Sounds like that was eliminated. If the listening sessions were to take that place, I would like to know if those comments and questions and concerns are going to be addressed with something other than the FAQs. I really feel that the attendance zones should be phased in. I know this is hard and probably a messy process, but I think that's what would be best for our community. I strongly encourage the board to listen to parents' comments and concerns, and remember that the children and families of this district are your clients. Please consider this plan, what it means to them, and find a way to minimize the impacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. That was right at 3 minutes. Thanks. All right, Leslie, who was next on Zoom? Okay, Donna Grassel, we are working to unmute you. You will have 3 minutes.
Hi there. My name is Donna Grassel, 200 Cedar Cove Road. Speaking on behalf of myself tonight as a 29-year employee in the district. I've long been a supporter of attendance zones, and I appreciate the work that has gone into this. I believe that attendance zones should mitigate some of the significant impacts of tiered starts. And it's unfortunate that this is coming about during COVID, which complicates some of the matters. I'm curious tonight about how the bus coverages have changed since 2019. My last recollection was that the outer edges of the busing in the district would be brought in significantly, and that some families would be driving possibly over 50 miles per day to get students to an elementary and then a secondary bus route. So that is a very significant concern for me as a secondary teacher. Also, just really curious about how those parents on the outer edges of the district would fare. I'm hopeful that the district's plan for attendance zones will help to mitigate that concern. And my apologies, Ginger, if this concern was already addressed. I was a little bit in and out during your presentation. I know you can't respond to me tonight, but I would appreciate a response in writing. Thank you for your time.
Leslie, is there anyone else on Zoom? And do you have more people signed up after that? Okay, perfect. I think after Michelle, then I want to switch over to the in-person, and then if there's other people on Zoom, we can catch them, but I want to honor the people that are here. So, okay. So Michelle, Leslie's working to unmute you at the moment. As soon as you're unmuted, you have 3 minutes.
All right, I think I'm ready. It looks like I'm unmuted. Michelle Shook, I'm at 5261 Cove Road in Ellensburg. I'm going to start off with saying that I totally understand the need for the zones. And I agree with Marla in her statement that they should be phased transfers. Some of those kids that are going to be 4th and 5th graders at their existing school, I feel like really should have the opportunity to stay at those schools. A slow roll, I feel like would have been the best option for the kids that are in their essential career. You guys can't see my air quotes. But my question is, how is the teacher placement going to be done for the kids that are transferring? How are the existing teachers going to be able to judge and know what teacher is going to be best for my student at a different school? Because looking at the zones, it looks like we will be transferring, and that breaks my heart because my kids love Valley View. So I'm just very curious to know what protocols are going to be taken to be able to make sure that students are placed with a teacher that is going to be able to serve those students well. And I know you guys probably can't answer that tonight, so I would definitely appreciate something being circled back on that.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, Leslie, who do we have up first in person?
Hi. At first, I'd like to say thanks for giving us the opportunity to be here and speak. And I'd also like to say that I appreciate the efforts of the superintendent, the committee, the board, everyone who's been involved in the project. I know it's probably extremely complex and difficult to manage and so forth. So I do appreciate that. I also understand the need for the new school. I see the portables and so forth.
Oh, sorry. Can you restate your name?
Yeah, Travis Smith. Did I say my address? 4951 Hanson Road. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway, so I understand the need for the new school, and now that it's built, it needs to be populated. So there's going to need to be some movement and some changes. I mean, that makes sense. And I know the busing thing is an issue as well. And so something needs to be done with that. So overall, what I'm getting at is I kind of understand the zones. But I also see what some of the other suggestions are saying, the idea of phasing things in or some kind of a hybrid approach, I think could work pretty well, even though it might be a little more challenging, a little more complex. So I hope that can be considered. And I'd like to move on to what I'm overall what I'm disappointed in. What I'm really disappointed in is the lack of communication with families, with the public on this process. I know Ginger said that this was in the newsletters, but honestly, I don't think everybody can be expected to read those newsletters carefully. We're busy people. Those letters are quite long. So any really pertinent information, I think, should be sent out directly to parents through the mail, with address to the parent. That's the kind of thing that will be paid attention to. I'm also disappointed in the lack of opportunity for input. I heard about the survey, well, yesterday, which is sort of a problem in and of itself. But that survey being canceled is a huge disappointment. Maybe that could have been combined or could still be combined with this direct letter to parents saying, hey, here are the zones, here's the situation, here's where you live, this is the school you'll end up going to. Please fill out this survey and give us some input. So that can at least be considered, so that people's voices can at least be heard. I'm also disappointed in the last minute question and answer period. If this is going to come to a vote tonight, it makes no sense to me to have a question and answer period the day before and the week before. That's just not enough time. So I think all these disappointments are significant despite the things I see that make sense. And I think these kinds of things, this lack of communication, the lack of opportunity for input can breed distrust and a lack of support in the district, in the board, in the superintendent, intendant, and everybody involved. And I don't think that's a good thing. So what I'm asking for is for not for the attendance zones to be thrown out or anything like that, but for at least the approval vote to be suspended until some of these other things can be addressed. Thanks.
Thank you.
Josh Welsh, 903 East Spokane. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come and share feedback. One thing that I think is clear from listening to everybody talk about the schools and the work that's going on here is that we really value the teachers in our schools and the administrators in our schools. And that's why we're here. And that's why we're resistant to some of these changes. It's wonderful that we have a new school in the district. We definitely need the space in the schools, and moving to zoned attendance just makes sense. That's what the town will have to move in that direction. Nevertheless, echoing some of the other comments that we've heard tonight, I hope that the school board and the district will do what it can to ensure that the transition impacts those currently enrolled students as little as possible. When families chose a certain school and started sending their kids to Valley View or Mount Stewart or Lincoln Elementary, those families made a commitment to that school. The kids at each of those schools work really hard to be part of those communities, and the school board should honor that commitment and the work that those kids are doing. And they should work to ensure that the families can finish their kids' elementary years at the schools that they started in, if that's what the family thinks is in the child's best interest. I think making these accommodations will probably be complicated, and it will probably make things difficult for some of the adults that are in charge of making this transition happen. But the alternative is to make the transition really much more difficult for each child that's going to be sent to a new and unfamiliar school next year. I think we all understand that a school is more than a building. A school is a community, and it's about leaders, teachers, and students. And I hope that you will do what you can to help accommodate those families that prefer that their kids finish their elementary years in the community that they started in.
Thank you.
Hey, you're the one that got it right. Hello, my name is Tim Sorry, 805 East Tacoma Avenue here in Ellensburg. I'm Mari's husband and the father of twin girls Maya and Yuki of 4th grade at Valley View Elementary School. We are appreciative of the hard work and the time that's been put forth by the attendance committee. I shall refer to as the AZC. We understand how a zoning process is necessary for the school district when considering complexities that range from student transportation to ensuring socioeconomic equality across the school district. We're here to share a perspective from a parent's point of view. Just before the first public presentation by the superintendent on February 17th, we found out that our home address is located within the Lincoln Elementary School District. During the presentation, we soon realized that our primary concern was raised in the chat dialogue box about the 5th grade students being grandfathered in. In fact, the concern was echoed by 9 parents that night. As our daughters returned this past fall of 2021 from about a year and a bit of online learning, they're now just settled into the classroom and excited about school once again. They've been looking forward to being a fifth grade Valley View Elementary alongside of their classmates for several years now. Although our daughters are quite resilient, they've been highly distressed since February 17th, finding out they may not finish the elementary school year as a Valley View Bobcat. And they've wanted that since their kindergarten year. One of my daughters cried herself to sleep that night. Transitioning to a different elementary school for fifth grade and then immediately transferring to a middle school following the year is not beneficial to this particular group of students. Peer-reviewed education PK-12 research has suggested that multiple moves for a child causes negative impacts towards academic successes, instability of place and space, and complicates social emotional well-being or social emotional learning. And I have cited literature on that. Even if there is some possibility of students' transfer requests being accepted, not knowing where the school they will attend next year, and being a fourth grader this year, this causes of great concern and uncertainty, especially as we end the pandemic, hopefully, and troubles that they've had inside and outside of the classroom. For these reasons, we're asking for the current fourth grade students be allowed to finish their fifth grade year in the current location if their families choose to do so and abide by the recommendation. We know that the Core Ellensburg School Board belief for the superintendent includes from your website, people are our most important resource and our district puts learners first. Your website. We have earnestly, my website too. We have earnestly felt this way until now, and we hope that the school board considers these core beliefs as they discuss the proposed zoning process. We're simply asking for the school board to pump the brakes and walk around the bus to make sure that all of us are on board. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to submit this. I have cited literature as well.
Do you want to open it? I think I can move it down for you. Can you reach that? Is that okay? We can remove that out.
My name is Maya Sori, 805 East Tacoma Avenue, Ellensburg, Washington. I am a fourth grader at Valley View Elementary School. This is my twin sister, Yuki. This is what me, Yuki, and my classmates came up with. Our Valley View fourth grade class thinks that it is wrong that grown-ups get to decide where kids will be going to school without asking for idea from the kids first. I thought that the school was about what is best for kids. Although change can sometimes be good, moving around too much can cause stress and anxiety for the kids. All of the teachers you build trust with will be left behind. Some people think that it might be cool to try new things at a new school, but most of us think it would be sad to leave our friends and teachers behind. Maybe the new school will have different teaching styles that will be difficult to learn and kids will be stressed. Since kindergarten, we have fun events like the walkathon, color run, and even the end of the year barbecue. If we move to a new school, we will have to miss out on these fun events and we will not be able to do all the Valley View fifth grade events we have been looking forward to for a long time. That is why we think you should let the kids stay who wants to stay at their current schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie, is there anyone else in person? Okay, so just verifying no one else in person and no one else online. Then I am going to go ahead and close public comment for this matter. All right, so board, this is an action item. We have been, since June, this got mentioned. And ever since then, I think the last 4 months, this has been on the agenda every single meeting, I feel like. We've been discussing it. I asked at our last meeting, I was like, what are the downfalls of making this decision? So this is why we get elected. We have to make these hard decisions. So I want to open it up for discussion.
Well, my impression, am I correct on this, that what we're deciding tonight is, oh, it's a bunch of feedback, right?
I'm going to move the speaker.
Okay, so. Oh, is that the problem? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Well, am I correct that the decision we're making tonight is to adopt attendance zones with the boundaries that have been presented, not to decide where everybody's going to school next year? Those decisions will be made over the course of the next weeks and months,
Yes and no.
and I hope that we can keep a lot of people happy, but there will be a great deal of change. But I think there will also be opportunities to address the kinds of concerns we've been hearing in the transfer process.
So I would say that's a yes and a no on that. The boundaries, as they're drawn, is saying that these will be attendance zones for our students. So
Right.
students that live in those zones would automatically have a seat at those schools.
Right.
I think what you may be trying to say, Meg, which I would say we could look at and potentially come back with more feedback, is around that transfer process, the transfer process, because it's the
Right.
transfer process that, would determine, like if five parents at Valley View said, we want to keep our 5th graders there at Valley View for next year, we're going to fill out the transfer forms. That's the process then that determines how we're able to maybe allow, at least for next year, some kind of a transition through the transfer process. So what I think I hear you saying, Meg, is this is a decision tonight that, and this is how I see it, is that the attendance zones are drawn so that anybody who lives in any one of those zones automatically get a seat at that school.
Right.
But for people that want a transfer, we have a process set up, right? And honestly, until those transfer requests get put in, we don't really know, what the capacity would be. We also need time. Somebody asked about the staffing. We have a whole process laid out for that. And we are working really closely with our teachers union right now to get the fine details worked out around voluntary and involuntary transfer process within that movement of staff. And we're really close to being able to release that information or land on that information about how many sections will be at every school, how many students will be at every school. And once we're able to look at that and we're able to let teachers know, then we're able to do that movement. And then somebody asked the question about, their teacher. Well, how would I know? I think Michelle asked a good question of, well, if there's new teachers at the school that I'm zoned for, what is that process going to be to make sure that my child gets a teacher that I think is going to be compatible? And I would say that we would, once the staff is redistributed or relocated at different buildings, the principals would get together like they always do and really talk about what would be, you know, they would use that same process like they always do for that. I would say that, you know, someone mentioned, Travis, I think you mentioned the survey, and we actually brought that up at our February meeting, and we thought, well, we don't want to be disingenuous with parents and send out a survey when really the boundaries and the drafts of those boundaries really won't change that much. And we really felt that, and we talked together about how through a listening session, by presenting and looking at those questions, that we would get a good idea of what parents' priorities were. And I think that we did. And I think one of the priorities that came out really was that grandfathering of the 5th grade students. And so I guess my recommendation would be, you know, to move forward, adopt the attendance zones, which then automatically gives those students who live in those zones a seat at that school. And the transfer process is actually a procedure, and it's more of a superintendent decision. And hearing that feedback, I think we have a good criteria. We spent a lot of time on that. I think we have a good process. Matt is ready to go so that parents right away could put those transfer requests in. And I would say, you know, if parents put their transfer requests in right away, probably by the end of March, maybe even to April, we'll have a good idea of kind of what the interests are of parents and where they want to go. And we can start working together once we have the staff members in different places to say, okay, what could we accommodate at every school, knowing that I think someone mentioned they even counted the number of parents on the 17th that said that they wanted to have their 5th grade students grandfathered in, like they count like 9 parents saying that. And I agree that that was a real common request. And it may be through the InterDistrict transfer process, we look and maybe by the principals working together as next year as a transition year, we might be able to do some of that. But we really won't know until we settle on these are the attendance zones. Everybody in these zones get an automatic seat. We allow parents to put their requests in, use the process that we came up with, and then work together around, is there a way to be able to do that?
My point is that we don't really know what's going to come up in the transfer process because we keep saying, you know, what if 5 people want to go to Valley View and there are only 4 seats or something?
Right.
But what if there are 5 other people who want to go the other way?
Right.
You know, we might have a
Yes.
fair bit of that happen.
Right.
And that's my point, is that
Yeah.
we need to work through the process and see where we are.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Meg, and we won't know until those transfer requests come in, and it may be that we're able to do some swaps like that. We just won't know until we get the staff
Exactly. And
there.
my point is, we're not
Yeah.
approving anything tonight that says what the outcome of that process will be. We're only approving that we are going to adopt these boundaries and people will be guaranteed seats within their zone,
Yes.
but that there will be an opportunity to
Fill out the transfer request process.
Exactly.
Yes. Yep, we're agreeing.
Okay. And thank you for that. Just as we move forward, board and administration, if I can please call on you, we have a lot of back feedback. And so we need to make sure our mics are turned off. So I'm gonna, if you can address me, I hate doing this as chair, but if you can address me so that way we can make sure only one mic's on, because that feedback is not fun for the people in the room, right? So thank you. Board, this is definitely we need to discuss this further. So. So Mike, are you?
I guess, you know, coming into a school district where attendance zones is not in place is new to me, because growing up, we all had that community schools and things like that. So I understand the families wanting to continue discussions or wanting us to continue discussions. But I also can understand that the boundaries are set, well, they're not set, but the boundaries are now drawn up that we may have to move forward and then adjust things down the road. But I don't know if just approving it right away and then doing that is the way to go, or yes, it is, and we worry about the transfer processes and stuff as well, so.
Ginger, did you want to clarify briefly?
Real briefly, we have to remember too, we're on a timeline because, and I've shared this all along, that our transportation department really needs a decision around what those attendance zones are going to be. And so does Matt in enrollment, so that we can actually, because all the behind the scenes work around starting the routing and all of that is really a big job. And if we push that off past, I don't know, that first week in March or even the second week as far as deciding on zones, then we could run into some real problems with really having our transportation up and ready to go.
And I fully support getting rid of the bus transfer. That we need to simplify that. So definitely having those attendance zones to address the busing issues will make a better situation.
All right, thanks, Mike. Tasha and then Meg.
Okay.
I appreciate that the work that the committee did. I know I'm looking around, it wasn't me, that the committee did with the attendance zones. And I want to speak to the family and student issue more and ask you to bear with me, really looking at from a parent standpoint of this. And everyone who shared their feelings tonight, I'm not going to be able to remember everyone's name. Marla, I think it was Travis, I'm sorry, Dr. Story. Maya and Yuki's story showed you all up. So thank you, Maya and Yuki, for showing up and sharing that. I'm a mom of 4 kids. I was at Valley View, Callum and Mazzy. And last year, it was really difficult sitting through the transportation, the bus conversations, because the busing was a huge trouble spot. And learning more about it, my family was the huge trouble spot. My family lives probably the furthest point you can from Valley View, yet we are a Valley View family. It's been a really tough couple of years for the kids with COVID, and we live out by Menashtash, and they are really by themselves. They don't have a strong neighborhood of kids around them. But our family sat down and we had heard stories from a lot of Lincoln families who didn't want to have their year disrupted with the move into Ida Nason and what was happening. And we were looking at, we are a problem family with the busing issue. And so we looked at Callum, a 5th grader this year, and Mazzy, a 3rd grader this year. And we said, we are going to transfer you to Lincoln at the beginning of this year, because we need to stand by our community and we need to make these choices. And you can imagine what the 5th grader thought and what his worries were. Mazzy's a little resilient little girl, so she was all in. And Callum, the 5th grader, was very much worried about color run, walkathon, the end of year barbecue, and you guys didn't bring up the talent show. The talent show. He was like, I'll never have a talent show again. I'll never have friends again. And the 3rd grader said, I play soccer with all these people and go to dance, so I just want to be in class with kids. And the educator in me and the mom in me was like, well, how are my kids going to be centered and move into Lincoln, and how are their academic needs going to be met? Because those teachers aren't going to know them at all from a year and a half of COVID. And how is this going to happen? And we have amazing educators and staff in Ellensburg, and we really owe them so much of our thanks as a community. And amazing educators and staff at Lincoln took those 2 kids in, and they had the exact same ELA program. They had the exact same writing program. They had the exact same math program. It was all going really well until Mrs. Holderman, we were at the student conference with Callum, and Callum looked at her in a minute and said, this whole entire booklet, do Lincoln kids write more than Valley View kids? And she was like, no, Callum, we're all the same. And in that one moment, Callum knew that he had community And I knew as a mom that I had community. And I realized as a mom sitting there that what my kids needed more than anything is that they need to know that in these uncertain times, in our really small town of Ellensburg, that whether they're at Valley View or whether they're at the soccer park or whether they get to go to the amazing dance studio downtown, they have relationships, they have support, and they need to know their community is behind them. And Lincoln staff rose up and did that. So I hear all of these compelling, very compelling, really, Maya and Yuki, you are the compelling voices in this. And I put them next to Callum and Mazzy's voice. And I put them next to all of those kids who've had disruptions. And when I'm weighing this, it is scary. And it's been really scary through all of this stuff for kids, because Maya, I think it was you who were speaking, you said, this is adults doing something to kids. Again, it was kind of hard to hear at times, but I bet it does feel that way. But there are a lot of caring adults in this community. And as a mom and as a former educator sitting here, there are a lot of people who've sat here and wrestled with this. And so when someone asked tonight, is this a busing issue? Is this just an efficiency of system issue? It's much, much more than that. It really is putting our kids first. That really has been the center of the conversations. It might have been compelled or propelled because of COVID on this, but it really was because we have 4 beautiful elementaries. And at one point, the move from 3 to 4 is going to be messy and it's going to be uncertain. But I am reassured because of my experience of moving my kids within this district this year, and I am reassured by our amazing staff that what our kids need more than anything is relationships, support, and community. And they really have it here. And that's what I'm going to hang on to.
Thanks, Tasha. Meg, you were next. Okay, Meg. Oh, you're okay for right now? Okay, then we'll switch to Jonathan.
I was just gonna say, I agreed with what Meg and Tasha said. You know, there is the process, they'll go forward. We'll have to see how those transfer requests play out as far as like everyone getting what they requested. But I do think it is something we need to move forward with. And I agree with you, Tasha, it's not about the logistics and all that, but hearing the stories of kids being on the bus over an hour each way in Ellensburg, because the bus has to go to several schools and transfer station, that is a lot of time. So I think the committee has put in a lot of work. It's something that's been discussed for a long time. Well, you know, for quite a while here. And I think it's something we definitely should move forward with and adopt.
Thank you, Jonathan. Anyone else? Meg?
Well, what I was going to say was just that I thought Mike and I were kind of saying the same thing. Let's adopt the boundaries and see how it, what I thought I heard you say, let's see how, let's see how it plays out. I mean, we're not going to not adopt the boundaries, but we do have a process ahead. Still, it's not going to begin. I'm misunderstanding you.
I think that's a great question, Meg. I do want to clarify though, there is a level of policy that we as a board decide, but there is a level of procedures that we do not, and that would fall under the administration. So I think we just need to be clear about what it is that, and Ginger, if you can clarify again, what is being proposed to us exactly that we should be voting on?
So what we're proposing is the adoption of the attendance zones on the map like we showed tonight. And that by adopting that attendance zone, we are saying that students are guaranteed a seat at that school. We're also going to, because part of that is transportation, we're also saying that buses will only, it's all the non-negotiables that we had, and I can pull that back up. It's all the non-negotiables that go along with an attendance zone. So the non-negotiables are that, again, students who live in the zone are guaranteed a seat at the zone. If parents do apply for a transfer, that they would have to provide their own transportation for that. Those are 2 big pieces of that. A third piece of that is if they want, if somebody wants to go to a school outside of their attendance zone, they do a transfer request process, which we already have a process in place for that. They came out of the attendance zone. So it's voting for the zone. And you, along with that are the non-negotiables. And maybe let me bring that back up again, just so that it's very clear, because that is part of it. Can't say you're going to do it and not have these non-negotiables that go with it. So let me pull that up.
And Ginger, so I have those, and I think
Okay.
I'm just gonna read those
Thank
4
you.
bullets. So I think there's no question about the zones, or you've seen the maps. Is there any further questions about the zones? Okay, so to move us forward, the non-negotiable factors regarding the attendance zones, they are the following. Students who live within an attendance zone for a certain elementary school are given an automatic seat at that school. Point 2, if a parent requests a transfer outside of their child's attendance zone and the request is approved, then the parent would need to provide their own transportation. Point 3, all schools will follow similar staffing models. Point 4, every school may have a different culture, but students will have access to the same instructional materials in every school. Is there any other clarification on, because that is really what
That is what you're voting.
that's what's being presented to us, and that is what we're asked to make a decision on. So again, Jonathan or any other board members, any other comments or discussion? Board, I know this is really tough. These decisions always are. We always know that it's never going to be a win for everybody in our community. We have been working on this information for a long time. There are a lot of reasons to do this. A lot of students that have been suffering because of transportation issues. I fully support this. I know that it's not going to be a win for everybody, but I do think it's going to fix a more systemic problem that we need to address, and that will be better for our schools and our kids later on. I know at our last board meeting, I asked specifically, I was like, Ginger, we've been presented this so many times. What's the negative what's really the downside to this? When we hear from people, or we are not hearing from people actually, what will they tell us? And so we're finally getting that when we're right now at the moment where when we have to make a decision, we're hearing that. And all that I heard is it's really about change. And it's about choice. And that's hard. It's hard, especially with COVID. And so I know as I cried myself to sleep when I had to go to 5th grade, because I was told with the school model, they had to switch it. And I'd have to now go to the higher level school where I was going to be the oldest in the group. And then the same thing happened when I went to 8th grade. I got moved to the high school, and then I was upset. It was in 8th grade, I wasn't crying about it, but I was mad, right? And so these sort of adjustments are normal. They happen. Unfortunately, I think this is, it's bad timing because it is COVID and it's been rough. But I think in the end, we need to teach our kids resilience. I do believe adaptability is this generation's strength when they grow up. I hope they're adaptable. I hope that they are more adaptable than we ever have been with change, because they've had to during some really tough times in their life. But board, I don't feel like we have any other choice. I think this is the best presented option for us to move forward. And I trust that the district will work with our parents and our families to try to solve and honor the requests that people will have to the best that they can. So this is a item that we need to take an action on. So are we going to take an action?
I move that we adopt the attendance zones presented and the accompanying non-negotiables. And
I'm sorry.
And a sign might not be the right word, but the district to carry out the transfer process with as much sensitivity as possible.
Thank you, Meg. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, Meg has made the motion and Jonathan has seconded. Board, is there any discussion? All right, then I am going to call the vote. Jonathan, just because you are not with us, I'm going to do the individual vote, just so I can, for the record. I will start with Meg.
Did somebody second the motion?
Yes, Jonathan seconded Meg, sorry.
Okay, I vote aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Tasha?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion carries. All right. Thank you, public, for coming. You're welcome to stay as we keep moving forward too, but you're also welcome to go too. Thank you for being here. Next up on our agenda is policy. We have policy 3241, discipline.
Yes, Board, we brought this to you a couple of times and our administrators wanted time to go back through the matrices and they had a chance to go back and make those adjustments and they do support the adoption of this policy. So recommendation is adoption of the policy.
I move that we adopt this policy as presented and remind everybody that we need to, what's it called? Delete or retire policy 3200, which it replaces or partially replaces.
All right, that sounded like a motion, correct, Meg?
Yeah, right.
So is there a second?
I second.
All right, Meg has made the motion that we adopt policy 3241 and Mike has seconded. Board, is there any discussion? Not hearing from anyone, including Jonathan. I will call the vote. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, that takes us to student reports. And one of our students stayed with us this whole time. Thank you so much. So do you have a student report for us tonight?
I do have a report, quite a bit since I haven't been here for a while. But currently we're about a month into our second semester. And I just wanted to recap on finals and give a shout out to our National Honor Society who hosted a cocoa and cram the week before. I know that time was very stressful for a lot of students, especially coming back and it being our first time, our first final since, for at least juniors and seniors since our freshman and sophomore years. So it was especially nice to be able to have that support from our students and staff. Another highlight is our winter sports season is wrapping up and our teams are on to postseason. And I'd like to give a shout out to our girls basketball team who made it to state. They're still currently undefeated, yes. And another shout out to Francisco Ayala. He placed second at state wrestling in the 145-pound division, which is a huge accomplishment. So I just wanted to shout out him and say what a great job. So also on January 30th, I was really excited to attend the WASA Legislative Conference virtually. And they discussed a lot of things, and I just wanted to highlight a few things that I thought were really interesting. They talked about a lot of bills, and the ones that really caught my attention were the ones that specified about like mental health, because I know a lot of students right now are struggling, whether it be with their schoolwork or their what's going on at home. But I thought that a lot of those were interesting. We had a lot of guest speakers and we heard from legislative senators on issues that they were covering, especially a lot about the pandemic. which was interesting. And we got to hear from Senator Alex Ybarra, which is one of our local representatives, which was super interesting for me to hear things that he's focused on, especially since it's local. And he talked a lot about mental health and behavior and his focus on special education, especially in our area. And he also stated that he likes to focus on our area, that we will get his attention first, which I thought was very nice of him to say. And then one of the last things that really caught my attention in the conference was they had a lot of student representatives talking there. So it's interesting to see other student points of view. But recently, sort of going off from that, at the high school, they've been taking a lot of polls, checking up on students. And one of the things that has come back is students are really stressed right now. And in our advisory classes, we have like circle times, and we get in a circle and we talk about, or they have a question that they ask us, and we've really been focusing on ways to manage stress and mental health during this time. COVID, obviously, as we all know, was really hard on students, and the student representatives in the conference talked about this. I don't know if it's an app or a website called Talkspace. I need to look a little bit more into it, but it's an online thing that students can go onto, and they have access to therapists and people that can help them get through these hard times. And students were talking about it, and not a lot of students who need it have access to those kinds of help. And I know that we have some mental health professionals at the school who can help, but it's always just a nice, thing to have that other option to, go online and talk to people who can help you, because, I've struggled, a lot of my friends have struggled. And so I thought that was just really interesting and something that should be looked more into in the future. And that's all I have, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Tasha, is there a teaching and learning report?
I attended the WASDA leadership 2 weeks ago now, and part of that was we were able to have an hour and a half with Superintendent Reichdahl and key members of his staff. So it was interesting listening to what they believe is coming off of the legislative process and how we can strengthen our districts and our students' experience. And so one thing that he really impressed upon the 19 of us is that OSPI does not dictate the learning style or what is at our happening within our districts, that we really do have local control when it comes to this. And he mentioned the prototypical model, that is an algorithm that comes from the legislature, right? Every month we have to report our attendance. They put this in there, and then they send it out. But that there are districts that choose not to fund certain things with that. The board and the administration have made a choice to maybe have more mental health professionals at the school, or maybe they want to have, I don't know, we have choice in this. And so that's what he wanted to impress upon the 19 board members that were in attendance there. And his chief of staff, who I'm forgetting her name now, I can't believe I'm forgetting her name. She is incredible, and she comes from Spokane's Human Resources, and she speaks very well and advocates always that the prototypical model, or these unfunded mandates, the stresses it puts within districts, needs to be addressed. And so that was an interesting conversation, and that there were, I wish I would have had that information the first day I was sworn in as a board member, and they had a flow sheet of how decisions are made. So I've requested that information. Hopefully we can put that in our board packet. And then he also had the myths of OSPI, what they do and what they don't do. So I requested that document too, because that would have been helpful when I was first sworn in. And then very briefly, I was able to go to the school, high school last Friday. And I was able to walk around with Principal Snow and Superintendent Haber. And I just want to thank especially Bo Snow for his time, because he's busy and there's so much going on there. But I was able to go in and see some classes and talk to some students, and that was great. So I want to thank them for that.
Thank you, Tasha. Let's see. Next up, legislative report. Meg.
I will try to be brief. The legislature is rapidly reaching the end of its session in 2 weeks and 1 day, just about when I reach the end of my term. And this week, as I've been doing as we go along, I've put opinions in on a few bills, and I also finally found a bill that I thought the students might be interested in, and got a positive response from Chloe, and I'm going to keep following that one. It has to do with a new learning pathway that you can, or a new ability to demonstrate your learning through a portfolio. The big thing that's happening right now is budgets, and particularly the operating budget is of the main interest to us. And the enrollment stabilization was funded, but not fully. The mental health stuff was funded, but not fully. So there were a number of things that were funded in the Senate, but not in the House, and some other things that were funded by the House and not the Senate. And so negotiations are happening, and we'll know the outcome in a week or so. One other thing is that the implicit price deflator that they use for salaries is way up in the air, with different positions being taken by different actors. And the expert from WASA, Washington Superintendents Association, whom I put most of my faith in, thinks that whatever, if it gets bigger, it'll come out of other K-12 stuff, not out of somewhere else in the budget, or else it will come out of us in bargaining. So it's not wonderful, but it's life. I'm doing what I can, and there's a lot we can't do, but we just need to wait, see what happens.
Thanks, Meg, for that very informative report. My report is very brief, but I feel like I need to give a huge shout out to Morgan Middle School. I got to tour Morgan with Superintendent Haber and was just thoroughly impressed. I think our teachers have gone through so much, and to see all of what they're doing. Again, I only got to see highlights of what was going on in Morgan Middle School, but a lot of great stuff. Again, I want to acknowledge the work that the teachers are doing. It's just phenomenal that they are just not completely exhausted, or how they're not showing that, because they're doing a great job. There were several things I'd love. I didn't bring my notes. I feel really bad. But the one thing that I definitely want to do is shout out to Carly Clark for the display that she had out front. That was really incentivizing citizenship. There's a bold PBIS program. Thank you. I knew I was gonna, when you don't have my notes, I'm gonna always screw up. But anyway, I thought what a great program to incentivize, and again, to keep people motivated. What I really wanted to make sure I was able to, when I walked away with, is I'm saying this is all the stuff the teachers are doing on top of their regular work and their regular jobs. And I think a lot of times that goes unnoticed. So again, I just want to say great job, Morgan Middle School. We see you, and thank you for all your hard work. So yeah, that is it for our reports. So we now will open it up to public comment. So Leslie, can you get us set up for that? Okay, so individuals wishing to be heard by the board will add their name to the document in the Zoom chat box, or they'll sign up with Leslie. You can also be recognized in Zoom by using the icon or the emoji to show you're raising your hand. Once the chair calls on an individual, they will identify themselves by stating their name and address for the record. Individuals will proceed to make comments within the 3-minute time limit. In order to provide equal opportunities for comments, an individual's microphone will be turned off at the 3-minute time limit. The chair may interrupt, terminate, or an individual's statement when it's too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. The board as a whole has the final decision in determining the appropriateness of such rulings. In accordance to the Open Publics Meeting Act 4230, agendas and topics must be set in advance of the meeting. Board members will not respond to public comment during the meeting. Additionally, comments may be submitted to the board at board@esd401.org. Leslie, are we ready? All right. Do we have anyone on Zoom or in person? All right, let's open it up to Donna. And again, Donna, if you can state your name, first and last name, as well as your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi there. My name is Donna Grassel, 200 Cedar Cove Road, speaking on behalf of myself tonight. First of all, Meg, I have missed a little bit of the info. I'm not sure if this is your last meeting or if it's a couple weeks from now. But I wanted to take the opportunity to thank you for your wisdom, your experience, your time, your perspective, your good heart for kids, and just to wish you all of the best with whatever is next on your pathway in life. Thank you, Meg. We frequently hear from the board how much the district honors and recognizes teachers. And I just wanted to comment tonight that there were 3 retirees or people leaving the district, maybe not through retirement, and none of them were mentioned by name. So I would like to mention them by name. Carol Aldridge has taught music at Lincoln Elementary and at Ida since the 1990s. I can't remember exactly what year she came here, but it's been a while. Carol Mowry, kindergarten, 1st grade, and title teacher, beloved teacher from Lincoln Elementary. Again, been here since the 90s. And Carol's position was eliminated this year. She's been on a 1-year leave of absence after her position was eliminated. Rosalind Miller has been at Valley View Elementary for, I think, since the 90s. I think we are looking at about 30 years of experience leaving our district tonight. Oh, I'm the math teacher. I'm not doing the math while my husband is correcting me. 90 years of experience. What am I saying? 90 years. Holy moly. I thought they deserved to have their names mentioned tonight. 90 years of experience. Man, that's a lot. They're leaving their careers during truly the most tumultuous and challenging times ever. And just wanted to honor their dedication to students and to doing what's best for the kids in our district. Early in the meeting, I listened to the presentation from Julie about early childhood, the preschool program and the TK, and I find that so exciting. The little ankle biters are always high.
Sorry, that's 3 minutes. All right.
I'll put the rest in writing.
I'm sorry, what? Okay, thank you, Donna. All right, Leslie, was there anyone else? Does not appear to be, and we have no one in person, correct? Okay. All right, then I'm going to close. All right, then I'm going to close public comment. Oh, we have one more. Just barely, and this will be the last one for our public comment. That was Michelle Shock. Okay. And Michelle, again, make sure you state your first and last name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
You got it. Michelle Shook. I'm at 5261 Cove Road. I again know that you guys can't address this in meeting or whatever. But I just wanted to let it be known that there's quite a few parents that are hoping that the announcement for the mask coming off on the 21st is a clean cut, just unmask. And so I just wanted to let you all know that that's something that a lot of parents are on high alert over. I know that the school board, obviously, it was a hot topic at the beginning of the school year. So I think that a letter or something addressing that from the school board and maybe their plan of action for that would be greatly appreciated by a lot of those parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we can close public comment. Ginger, any clarifications just to make sure? No, okay. All right, then we are going to close public comment. So board, that leaves future items for future consideration. I think the first thing that we need to consider is that we did interview candidates for position 1, as Meg has, oh, right, executive session. We do not have that on our agenda tonight. So I believe unless I'm, so board, I look to you for this decision. This is not solely my decision, but it's not on the agenda, and I don't think we have added it to the agenda. So oh, and Ginger, can you try your mic?
Because that's something that's normally on the agenda. I don't understand. We don't normally have it, but if we don't want to, we can save that decision. It's that information we'll have to just remember. Or we could, if we want, I would be glad to, we could schedule a special session on Friday just to get together and talk about it and
I know.
do an executive session then
Yeah.
and then come back out.
Yeah, it's a tough question because I realized as I'm looking through the agenda, I just didn't see it. And so again, since it's not on the agenda,
Yep.
again, I think we have to stick to that. Even though it's an executive session and no, and it's just us attending, it seems kind of a silly policy or rule, but I do want to honor that. We did have the interviews while it is fresh. I think it's best that we do meet as soon as we possibly can. So, and again, if if the board believes that we can go ahead and add this to the agenda at the end, I'm open to doing that. But that needs to be a board decision.
I'm trying to research as fast as possible and really wishing that Matt were here with his rule book right now, so we could do point of order. I believe that executive session is something that can be voted on within a meeting. And this executive session is pertaining to an already stated subject of interviewing people who are here. And I want to be sensitive to the people who took time out to come and see us. And one person came here directly from teaching a class. And twice we were asked, but when will we know the decision? And we said tonight. So that's what's weighing on me. And so I don't think it's illegal to move into executive session. And the executive session is dealing with filling a seat. That is, that's what the discussion would be around, and then the action would be taken publicly. So that's what I'm trying to weigh. And so if anyone else has any clarification or thoughts on that.
I have a thought on that. What if we could do our executive session and then we could have And just to kind of talk about, while it's fresh in our minds, since an executive session is something that we normally do. And then we could just let the candidates know that we can, schedule another meeting for the actual announcement and voting on it.
Thank you, Ginger, for proposing that to the board. What do you all think? I do think that, I think for us to move forward, I think I'd like for us to call it, if we're going to take an action, I think we need to call a vote and make an official act on that.
I move to have an executive session to discuss the candidates for position 1.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Mike and a second by Tasha to have an executive session. Just for point of clarification, I think we'll do that right before adjournment, just so that way we finish the actual board agenda. And the only thing that we are meeting for would just be that. So for clarification, I'm seeing all nods. Okay. Well, and no decision. Right. The decision will come at another board meeting. That's correct. Okay. I will then call the vote. All those in favor with an aye?
Aye.
And Jonathan, did I hear you? Okay.
Yeah, aye.
Thank you. And then all those opposed? All right, motion carries. So we will go into executive session as soon as we finish board calendar and clarification of next steps. Board, is there anything else for proposed items for future consideration? Seeing that there is not, then we will go to board calendar. Anything for board calendar? Anything for clarification and next steps? All right, then all that we have left is the executive session. Oh,
I don't know if this falls under clarification, but I do have
Okay.
a really quick question. And this is a follow-up to Donna's announcing the names of the retirees. That is pretty important. So I don't know if that is something that we're not supposed to do, or if it's something that Ginger can do, but I think it would be really important to announce people that get to retire and stuff like that, that have spent a long time.
Oh, I'm sorry, turn it on while yours is on. We actually do a big celebration called Excellence in Ellensburg, where we name off all of the retirees and folks that come. We have them come up on stage. We have an apple that we give them and really celebrate them at that time. But we can certainly be intentional at this time, but we do a big celebration and we invite people to come in and really give them, and we say a little something about them too. But yes, absolutely, our retirees are extremely important to us, and we're very thankful for all of the many years. I just saw Carol today and was just celebrating her retirement. Yep.
And Jason, you did mention it at the beginning of the meeting, actually. You said we had a couple of retiring teachers and things like that. I just was following up with the name thing for recognition.
no, absolutely. I think that's a great clarification, and that might be something that we as a board, again, kind of do. Historically, when I look back at when I first started the board, I think that I remember Dan Schisler would very clearly that would always be the thing he'd do if he saw a person's name on the agenda that was retiring, he'd want to acknowledge that person. And so that's a great, I think it's a great comment that was made. I think we do want to honor our staff and our teachers. So I think this is a great consideration with Ginger sharing what the district does to honor them with that event. Maybe for the board, we can consider, just having a little bit more information about so that way when we have that on the committee or on the agenda, we could actually honor their names and maybe years of service, something along those lines. Because I know that's important to the board. And so I want to definitely value that. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's a great suggestion. And I know we don't comment, but I'm glad it got brought up because I think that is a value of our board. So thank you. Yeah. Anything else? All right. Then, yep. So I think we will just stay in here. We are going to have a discussion for probably, Oh, so we're going to have to do a separate Zoom. Okay, so everyone, so thank you all that are still here. We are going to go into executive session. We will be in executive session for 15 minutes, and then we may need to extend that for just a few minutes, and then we will adjourn after that. So that is the plan. So you're welcome to stay in, but I don't think you're going to see anything. So thank you. All right, we are moving to executive session. are coming back after our session and we are adjourning. That's all we've got to do. We are adjourned. So thank you.